Here we go.
All right.
She doesn't want to hit the chocolate.
Use it or lose it, they say. All right. Will the meeting of the Board of Trustees of the California State University please come to order? Ms. Kiss, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Abrego. Governor Brown, Trustee Carney. Trustee Day.
Here.
Trustee Eisen.
Here.
Trustee Fagan. Trustee Farrar.
Here.
Trustee Furstenberg. Trustee Fong. Trustee Hinton. Trustee Campbell. Trustee McGrory. Trustee Melendez de Santa Ana. Trustee Morales. Lieutenant Governor Newsom. Trustee Nyland. Trustee Norton. Speaker Rendon. Trustee Reyes Salinas. Trustee Sebelius. Trustee Simon. Trustee Steinhauser. Trustee Taylor. Superintendent Torlakson. Chancellor White.
Here.
All right, Chair Eisen, we have a quorum.
Thank you. This is the time in which the board hears from public speakers. In fairness to all speakers who wish to speak today and to allow the board to hear from as many speakers as possible, we have allotted a total of 30 minutes for public speaking, which I believe we have 15 speakers. That will be 2 minutes each per speaker. Thank you for yielding the mic when the buzzer sounds so that all the speakers get a chance. Ms. Kiss, will you please call the speakers?
Okay, when I call your name, please come up in any order. William Blischke, Sky Dent, Edgemond Hakebian, and Dulce Lopez.
Good morning. I'm William Blischke. I'm president of CSU Emeritus and Retired Faculty Association, and so I'm representing them. One of the things, tongue-in-cheek, I tell my colleagues is that my greatest accomplishment as president of this organization is to orchestrate and oversee its demise. We're going out of existence within a month or so. That's the bad news. The good news is that we're actually expanding, and instead of being called the Emeriti and Retired Faculty Association, it's going to be called the Emeriti Retired Faculty and Staff Association. And any CalPERS annuitant from the CSU will be eligible to be a member of our expanded organization. So one of the problems we've had is getting the word out to faculty who are FERPing or who are permanently retiring, getting the word out to them that we exist. And I would implore all of the presidents and the Chancellor's office to make sure you get our brochure and information out to the people who are retiring so they know we exist. We want them to be part of their local, what we call campus affiliate, but we also want them to be part of CSU URSA, as we're going to call it. I've said this a number of times, but we want to be as involved as possible in lobbying for the CSU. And we've made this offer frequently and often not been invited. I have to write from the president in our thing called The Reporter, which is our newsletter that goes out quarterly. You can go on on our website and get the latest copy. But I write from the president, and in it, I recommended that all of our members lobby for the CSU. And having been in politics and on school boards for 20 years, I know the most effective lobbying is local. So we've encouraged all of them to go to the local office of their legislators and lobby for increased funding for the CSU. I've said before that we have 20 different ways in which our members volunteer after they retire. And the latest one is to get trained to advise dreamers, but to help in the other 20 ways. And if any of you are interested in what 20 ways our various members participate in their campus after retirement, please let me know and we will send you a copy of that. So thank you for giving me a couple minutes. I might have exceeded that, but I'm good at that. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Ejmin Hakobian, and I'm here to share my opinion based on my experience as the former student body president at Cal State LA. Yesterday, I briefly mentioned how compromised the CSU audit process is. I want to share more, but I was given limited time to cover this. I want to let you know this is an extremely uncomfortable experience, and I would not be here if Chancellor White, Vice President Bard, Mandel, and Blanchard, and the Secretary didn't try to cover the actions of the Cal State LA administration during my presidency. Previously, I asked to talk at the Board of Trustee meeting about the corruption in the CSU, and I was given 1 minute or less to talk about it. I wrote a letter to the Board of Trustee and asked the Secretary to provide a confirmation after distribution. I never received that. I asked the Secretary to provide other means to contact the Board of Trustee members, and I didn't receive a response. So I want to ask you if it's okay for a president of the university to freeze the budget of the student body. That's a violation of Executive 369, and I had to school the CSU Chancellor's Office and our entire administration on that executive order. Is it okay for a vice president to yell at the students, and I'm running out of time, yell at the students? I have a lot more to say, so I'm expecting to get a follow-up, and I really want this to be resolved and not happen to anyone else. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Dulce Lopez, Yoselin Ramirez, Brittany Goss, and Rebecca Hisgard. Okay. Stephen Filling, Catherine Stevenson, Rocky Sanchez, and Carolyn Duckett.
Good morning, Chair Eisen. I'm here with my colleague, Kate Stevenson, and with your forbearance, I'm going to cede my time to her so that we can present a message about something important. Thank you.
Chair Eisen and members of the board, I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak to you again, this time as a math faculty member at Cal State Northridge. And I come to you with a hand outstretched to create a new year and a new start as we implement the executive orders. CSUN is a proud campus, one that was amongst the first in the nation to create gender and ethnic studies departments, and one that fought the math wars in pitched battles on campus and nationwide. We don't just study history, we participate in it. The faculty at CSUN took a stand against Executive Orders 1110 and 1100 revised. In the case of 1110, we were overruled. Despite our opposition, we prepared for 1110, and we stand ready to support our incoming students. As part of that preparation, I analyzed our baseline situation in context. CSUN's institutional research provided 10 years of data on the percent of students passing GE, math, and quantitative reasoning courses in their first year of study. These data were disaggregated by students' math placement prior to early start. Those 10 years saw a 325% increase in the percent of students who passed their GE math course having started in developmental math. A more than threefold increase and comparable to results in other systems where reforms were based on content, structure, and pedagogy. Note that we count students who became proficient via early start math as students who started in developmental math, an important distinction if we are to understand the structures behind student success. But a close look at the data, which we have available if the Board of Trustees would like to see it, but a close look at the data reveals areas of concern as well. Significant differences exist between students who were required to take 2 versus 1 semester of remediation. The one-term group is now completing GE math courses at rates that are closing in on those of proficient students, whereas the 2-term group still lags well behind. There are also differences when we disaggregate by gender and ethnicity. Such data help us refine our approach to the Executive Order 1110 to improve outcomes for the students that we have failed, while continuing to find ways to support students who have been better served by our prior practices. We need to find and scale mechanisms that credibly, effectively address achievement discrepancies between groups so that all our graduates achieve the same basic competencies. Finding those mechanisms will require attention to and contextualization of data from the CSU. Longitudinal studies must be part of the evaluation and assessment of the executive order so that we can focus energy in areas of greatest potential impact, set reasonable goals that campuses and faculty can buy into, and build trust between the Chancellor's Office and faculty who implement these executive orders. We must trust that the executive order's success is not a foregone conclusion. Trust that setbacks will be treated with the same growth mindset we expect in our classrooms. And trust that each part of the CSU has authentic student success as the primary goal. The next step in establishing that trust between the Chancellor's Office and the faculty would be to give the Faculty Advisory Board of the Center for the Advancement of Quantitative Reasoning, quite a mouthful, a seat at the table in the implementation, evaluation, and assessment of Executive Order 1110. Implementing EO 1110 will be a greater challenge than anticipated because of the unexpectedly large group of freshmen designated as fully proficient by the new multiple measures. Last week at CSUN, we learned that 95% of the incoming freshmen are likely to place into unsupported writing classes, up 40 percentage points over 2017. And 75% will do so in quantitative reasoning and math, up 20 percentage points. Both numbers were a surprise, and under the executive order, these proficient students cannot be placed into supplemental support. The new multiple measures have changed the landscape of proficiency in unexpected ways. It is not clear that the structure, content, and pedagogy of the curriculum serving those proficient students will be sufficient, so we need to make sure that we're planning with a growth mindset and a data-driven decision-making process. The CSU members, faculty members, are committed to providing the highest quality education for our students. We know that you are similarly committed, and we ask you to work with us to achieve our shared goals. Thank you.
Good morning, Chancellor White, Board of Trustees, presidents, and guests. I'm Rocky Sanchez, VP for Representation, CSUEU. I'm back on my theme from yesterday regarding managers. No surprise there, except that now I'm going to change it just a little bit regarding the bad managers that you all seem to like to play musical managers with, moving them from one campus to another in which they create problems for our members, for the staff, for those employees that have to deal with those bad managers. And yet you continue to move them around rather than doing away with them. And I don't mean in a bad way doing away with them, just not rehiring them, or moving them from one campus to another so that they can continue to cause problems and disruptions. I think you really do need to look in terms of what you're doing, because you make our jobs, your staff, worse, and sometimes you force us out, which means that you lose good workers. Thank you.
Good morning to Chancellor White, to the presidents and guests. I'm going to be very short. I wasn't going to speak, but I thought I had a little bit to say. I do have something to say this morning. Again, I'd like to talk about Unit 7s are working out of class. We have especially our community service specialists. We also have other Unit 7s that are working out of class. We ask that we meet again so that we could talk about that. Also, during the last 3 bargaining cycles, we were promised to meet with our classifier. I work here at the Chancellor's office. I have no clue who she is or he is. And I think it's time that we meet at the table to talk about these classifications, because we know that a lot of our members are working out of class, they're working overtime, they're not being utilized in the proper way that they should be. So I ask that we take a look at this and come back to the table and talk about it. Thank you.
Okay, Sergio Roldan, Rich McGee, Tessie Reese, Neil Jacklin, and Sheila Hudson.
Good morning, Board of Trustees. My name is Sergio Roldan. I'm from the Cal State San Marino campus. I serve as statewide vice chair for CSUEU's Unit 5. Chancellor White, on behalf of all 16,000 CSUEU represented employees, I ask that you please support AB 1231. This important piece of legislation, which has bipartisan support and continues to gain momentum, will address CSU's flawed salary structure for dedicated and hardworking rank-and-file staff, a great many of whom are not being compensated according to market rate and whose salaries are seriously inverted. Your support of AB 1231 would improve morale significantly and generate an enormous amount of goodwill. It would also add another important achievement to your legacy. The history books will remember you as a progressive, forward-thinking CSU chancellor who backed reinstatement of staff salary step increases, demonstrating in a meaningful way your commitment to investing in human capital, the most important investment the CSU can make. Thank you.
Rich McGee, Chair, Bargaining Unit 9. During the committee reports yesterday, much time was spent discussing how vendors should respond to CSU IT projects, such as the off-hour support for online courses. Why are campuses increasingly turning to vendors and outside consultants for support solutions instead of utilizing your own highly trained professional staff? While faculty do in fact bring their own pedagogy to these online courses, each course has to be developed and produced by instructional designers who work in close collaboration with both faculty and the campus community. Creating an online course is easy. You just have to throw up a website and answer a few questions. Creating a quality online course experience is the domain of the instructional designer, which is a staff position, many of which have advanced degrees, including PhDs. Many of our instructional designers know their field extremely well. They know their courseware, they understand their customers, both the student and the faculty member they support. If you do elect to expand online education, remember that each course requires an instructional designer to physically design, create, and publish the course. The CSU's instructional designers are not vendors. They do a much better job and cost you much less money than the $40 per call that was mentioned yesterday. Thank you.
Hi, Tessie Reese, Unit 2 Chair. I'd just like to take a privileged moment just to thank Sally Roush, President Roush, for this past year. It might sound like a small thing, but this was the first inaugural staff appreciation workshop that was a collaboration with not just the President's office, but the labor, management, human resources, and faculty. We set aside 4 hours during spring break where staff was able to go and participate in some workshops that was presented by faculty. About almost 600 people were able to attend. And it was, I hope, our inaugural, and it'll continue. But we keep hearing every day, people, especially like in the health center, very rarely do we get to go and participate on campus because we're busy seeing patients. So, and we're kind of isolated away from where everybody else is, even though we are on campus. So I just want to say thank you. Much appreciated. Staff still talks about it. We only got to share 1 year as president with you, but you leave gratitude to us. And I hope that you do enjoy your second retirement. And just thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good morning, Chancellor White, trustees, campus presidents, and guests. I would like to add some clarification to my statement from yesterday's meeting. I want to be clear that CSU EU members no longer receive step increases which allow them to progress through their classification ranges. I mentioned my friend Terry Wilson, who is a dedicated and valued member of the administrative services team at Fresno State. This is not President Castro's issue. This is a CSU wide issue. Also, I am happy to report that Terry has recently been promoted at Fresno State and falls within his expected salary range. To be clear, this is about restoring steps to all CSUEU members. It is not about salary increases received through the CBA, IRPs, campus equity programs, stipends, or bonuses. Thank you.
Okay, one last call for Dulce Lopez, Yosdelin Ramirez, Brittany Goss, Rebecca Hesgard, and Sheila Hudson.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brittany Goss. I am a student at Cal State Fullerton and part of a group of students who are taking time out of their finals week and my graduation week to come and talk to you. So first off, and I'm also a member of Students for Quality Education. We first want to thank Chancellor White and the board for stopping the proposed tuition increase and showing solidarity with your students and really listening to the messages that we've been telling you and putting pressure on the state to restore the funding to the Cal State system the way it was intended to be. At this time, it's really important for us, to continue that solidarity and to continue our work to push them to give the funding to public education the way that we know that it's there and the way that we think that it should be funded. So with that, really making sure that we are doing our best to continue that pressure. Some of you were there at our April 4th event, so thank you for attending. It was a huge event that Students for Quality Education and California Faculty Association put on. We had over 1,000 members of students, faculty, and community support that were there to really show up and to tell the state government that we need more funding. And it was very well received and heard widely. But at this time, we need to make sure that we aren't putting that burden on the students in unique ways. So stopping campus-based fees. Up at Cal State Chico, they just had a referendum about campus-based fees, and the students overwhelmingly said no, but the president said yes. And so students are now feeling that pressure that they said no, they had their voices heard in a democratic way, but it's being overrun. So making sure that we are still working with our students and showing that solidarity so that way the state doesn't see the cracks in our system and see the ways that we're still going to pump out money from students and then they can, again, default and not fully fund the CSU the way that we want them to. So I really call on you all to keep yourselves accountable and to keep each other accountable on this and make sure that students aren't being impacted in different flowery ways, flowery named ways, and that the money isn't coming directly from their pockets once again. So thank you.
Good morning, my name is Yoselin. I'm a student from CSU Dominguez Hills and part of Students for Quality Education. I'd like to start off by saying thank you to the Board of Trustees for not increasing our tuition for the next school year. We appreciate your stance on siding with the students. Having said that, we do not want to see any further tuition increases in the future. We cannot afford it next year or the year after that or ever. We need to find sustainable funding for the CSU so we don't resort to things like cutting out student services, enrollment numbers decreasing, or anything like that. We have to work together and not be in competition for the limited funding we have. Let's continue to work together to push the state for more sustainable funding for the CSU so we are not facing these tough choices year after year. Thank you.
Good morning, Chancellor, trustees, presidents, and other guests. My name is Sheila Hudson. I'm an Olympian and the former Senior Associate Athletic Director at Cal State LA. 2 years ago, I reported sexual harassment on behalf of myself, other female employees, and female students at Cal State LA. I also reported retaliation and gender discrimination. In spite of reporting my concerns to HR and the CSU on multiple occasions, since that time I've felt pressured to back away from my complaints or risk transfer to another department. I was placed on administrative leave after I insisted my complaints be investigated. I was fired for recording meetings related to my sexual harassment complaints in which I felt threatened. Cal State LA officials, HR officials contacted the police a month after I was fired in most cases. and tried to have me criminally prosecuted for making those recordings. The CSU is currently suing me for invasion of privacy for making those recordings, and the CSU is paying legal expenses for 3 employees who were recorded to pursue private civil lawsuits against me. I'm curious about just your thoughts regarding all of those actions and the propriety of them. And I hope that you'll consider that how these actions impact other women who might be considering coming forward to report misconduct. Thank you.
Thank you to all the speakers. Chair Eisen, that concludes public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Kiss, and thank you to all the public speakers. The board always appreciates hearing your comments about matters that you know are important to all of us. It's now time for the board chair report, the final board chair report from this board chair. I have to say, writing it has given me a really nice moment to reflect on the prior 2 years and all that we together on this board and in this room have accomplished and all the connections we have made. As most of you know, my very first experience with the CSU was in 1971 when I began my master's degree program in English at San Francisco State, which, as it is now, was a marvelous institution, albeit a bit tumultuous at times, but it was a great place to further my education. And by the way, in honor of my master's degree in English, I have embedded 5 literary references in my board chair report. Anybody who can get all 5 of them, and I'll warn you when they're coming up, will get an unnamed prize from me. So in those 2 years when I was getting my master's degree, I learned so much, the difference between less and fewer, between literally and figuratively, and from a famous treatise, which I believe should be on the desk of every English major, I learned the marvelous, albeit somewhat ironic phrase, eschew obfuscation, which of course I strive to do in every one of my reports. That was number 1, by the way, if you're writing them down. Mostly at the CSU, I learned curiosity, and I do believe it's something you can learn and that can be fostered. And with that, the entire world of continuous learning opened up to me. I've been grateful every day for the education I received at this great university, and I never cease to be impressed at how the CSU continues to change lives, as it did mine, and communities, and indeed, with those lives and communities, the world. In the past 2 years as board chair, my eyes have opened up so much wider to the, ready? Movable feast that is the CSU. Got it? Although not perfectly ordered, I thought I would try to summarize the incredible experience I've been privileged to have as your board chair in a top 10 list a la David Letterman, but true to my commitment to eschew obfuscation, I've boiled it down to a top 5 list. So here are my top 5 reasons that I have loved being the board chair. Number 5, the board. I mean, what an amazing event that was this morning to get that award. I heard us described as creative, curious, again, innovative, collaborative. I could not agree more. It's always a delight in my report to describe some of the goings-on of our trustees. This past 2 months, like every month, has been no different. I spent a day up in Sacramento with Larry Norton several weeks ago, as fierce an advocate for the CSU as anybody could want. I know that many of you have been up there making the same pitch for this institution, Jane Carney most recently, and hopefully to a successful result, because as someone once inscrutably said, Ready? Hope is the thing with feathers. I hope you got that one. Just last week, I spent an incredible evening at an event where women leaders of California were being honored. One of our awardees, and is that a great picture? Was our very own Latifah Simon. I only wish I could convey to you how rich and articulate, how inspired and inspiring her speech was. We were all standing in awe. It reminded me of another speech I once heard where the speaker said, ready? We are the ones we have been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. Latifah, you got it? Number 4 on my list is the Chancellor's staff. The brilliance and commitment and attentiveness to the needs of this university could not be better exemplified than it is in Lauren Blanchard, Steve Relier, Garrett Ashley, Andy Jones, Melissa Bard, Larry Mandel, Lars Walton, Michelle Kiss, and their respective staffs, who are also truly amazing. Each of them has listened to my crazy ideas and jumped on calls with me and stretched to get me data and information, and all the while showing me infinite respect and most of all patience. And I know they do this not just for me, they do it for every one of our trustees. They have embodied for me a literary phrase that to me says so much. Number 5, only connect. Only connect the prose and the passion, and both will be exalted. Number 3 on my list, the presidents. I wish I had my binoculars so I could see you better. I've had the joy of spending time with our 23 presidents on their campuses, on our Wednesday morning walk, that was great this morning, in the corridors, and increasingly in the bathrooms of this building. Every occasion I've had to interact with one of our presidents, I've come away in amazement. Amazed with the perfect balance of empathy and intellect that they bring to their extraordinarily complex jobs. Amazed at the energy they bring to their positions. Amazed at how they work with each other as a team for the benefit of this entire system. I've come to expect that I will learn something remarkable from one of our presidents whenever I speak to him or her, and they never disappoint. Maybe some have been a little too frank with me when responding to my questions about how our board is doing. You know who you are. But I know I will never get less than a straight story when I'm talking to a president. They are collectively and individually a marvel. Number 2 on my top 5 list, the other reports which follow on to mine. I'll get to the Chancellor in a moment, but first you need to know that you have to bring your A game when you're going to be followed by Chris Miller. You've disoriented me by sitting over there today. Maggie White, Manolo Morales, who doubles down by accompanying his wonderful report with a presentation by one of our inspiring alums. I say A game because that's what the Warriors will bring tonight. Yes? And because I know it gives the Chancellor a thrill whenever I use a sports metaphor. These faculty, student, and alumni reports are, of course, just an outline of the highlights of the work and activities of these 3 enormous constituents of the CSU family, but they are delivered so beautifully and with such care that you cannot help but kvel is the word, right, Deborah? Kvel when you hear these reports. And that brings me to number 1 on my top 5 list. Certainly one of the things I've loved most about being the board chair has been the opportunity to partner with and learn from, and sometimes tease, our Chancellor. He got back at me last night though, didn't he? I could provide a list as long as our capital outlay plan of the attributes and capabilities and exquisite leadership that Tim demonstrates on a daily basis. It is like being in a master class sitting at this seat. You know, I was once at a 10K race. I was watching, not running. But I saw a man who was getting ready to run this race, and I was pretty sure that he was eligible for all those senior discounts that I am now receiving. He was not a youngster, but he was wearing a t-shirt that on the front said, "Someday I will not be able to do this." But on the back it said, "Today is not that day." Today is never that day for our chancellor, and I hope it never will be. The board chair report is about telling the CSU story, and I've been privileged and honored to deliver that report each meeting as chair, and today I am privileged and honored to hand my beloved gavel over to our new board chair to be Trustee Adam Day and his trustee sidekick, Lily Kimbell. And I know both will serve this board and the CSU well. Thank you to all. Chancellor White, that concludes my final board chair report.
Before I begin my report, it's my duty under the Education Code to notify the board of approved changes in admission practices before those changes can be enacted. 2 campuses have provided justification and received permission to impact additional academic programs beginning with the fall 2019 term. At Channel Islands, the program in mechanotronics, and at San Marcos in biological sciences. Through the annual impaction review process, on the other hand, 2 campuses have discontinued impaction for both levels and academic programs for the 1920 academic year. At Humboldt, first-time freshman in environmental resource engineering, and at San Francisco, apparel design and merchandising, child and adolescent development, dietetics, and environmental studies. Well, as we've experienced, the May of Board Trustees meeting is one of transitions, and congratulations and thanks are in order for Trustee Reyes Salinas, whose term as student trustee ends this month, and in 2 days' time, George will earn his master's in communication from Cal State Northridge. George, as we've said earlier, you're an outstanding leader, a great representative, and a champion for Cal State and its students, faculty, and leadership. We will miss your leadership here, and congratulations to you and your family. It was wonderful to meet your mom earlier today. We must also congratulate and thank Trustee Emerita and CSSA President Maggie White, whose term is ending this month. Maggie also is set to graduate next week with her master's in public administration from Cal State Stanislaus. She's a tremendous leader and advocate for Cal State and inspiration for countless students at Stan State and throughout California. Maggie, best wishes in your next chapter, and congratulations to you and your family. Thanks as well to Professor Chris Miller, who has served as chair of the Academic Senate. Chris is passionately committed to Cal State. She was and is strong and committed partner in advocating for funding from Sacramento, and her role in the Graduation Initiative Advisory Committee, among so many other activities, will benefit our entire university for years to come. So thanks, Chris, for your service as Cal State's academic mission as Senate Chair. Congratulations and thanks again to Presidents Mitchell and Hagan for their distinguished and consequential leadership. Even in their respective well-earned retirements, both Horace and Willie will remain tireless advocates, champions, if you will, for their campuses, for the CSU, and for public higher education writ large. So thanks again, Horace and Willie. And congrats and many thanks to Chair Eisen for 2 outstanding years as board chair. Fortunately, Becky remains on our board as Governor Brown reappointed her to an additional term. I offer my deepest thanks and appreciation for her effervescent passion, her strong leadership, her wise counsel, and high expectations as chair. So thank you, Becky, for your steadfast commitment to our values, vision, and to our mission. Last but not least, I offer my congrats to our alumni representatives, Trustee John Nylon and Alumni Council President Manolo Morales, for their respective reconfirmations and re-elections. Congratulations to John and Manolo. Now, since March, actually before March, I've been talking with much of our larger Cal State community and around the country. And in all of my conversations with students, faculty, staff, alumni, friends, and anybody else who will listen, even if they don't want to, the topic always seems to land on an increasingly vital role of partnerships. Heck, we had our foundation leaders here a few weeks ago. I made three ship puns: relationship, leadership, and partnership. So don't all groan at once. I mean, it was effective then, it'll be effective now. Our partners enable us to build more inclusive pipelines and pathways for more students to move from kindergarten, even preschool indeed, to bachelor's degrees and beyond. Partners open the doors to real-world hands-on directed research and creative activity and opportunities therein for both faculty and staff. They create new and relevant internship, study abroad, volunteer, and career opportunities for our students and alumni. And through generous gifts and transformative grants, our partners help us fulfill our mission and scope. They provide scholarships, they enrich academics and athletics, and they allow us to further our momentum and our success on the graduation initiative. Certainly in these instances and so many more, partners and partnerships are key to Cal State's vision for California's future. But there's one partner, our biggest partner, our most permanent partner that I haven't yet mentioned, and that is the state of California. A few weeks ago, the United States Department of Commerce released figures showing that California's economy has grown from the sixth largest economy in the world to the fifth largest, leapfrogging the United Kingdom. And as we know, as do our partners in Sacramento, that California's immense prosperity, which grew exponentially from the second half of the 20th century to today, tracked pretty well with the rise in public higher education in the state, driven by Cal State University, by the University of California, and by the California community colleges. So when we see data such as that from the federal government, we must all take pride in knowing that this university was and is a key elevator that lifted California to number 5 in the world. Now last week, the independent, nonpartisan California Budget and Policy Center warned that the fifth largest economy in the world stands to lose billions of dollars in future, billions with a B, in future economic returns by continuing to underfund its public universities. The CBPC noted that per student spending today remains well below pre-recession levels and far below what we have asked from the state in a year where the state's coffers are strong. So those figures and analysis, in addition to similar projections by the Public Policy Institute of California that we heard at our last trustees meeting, should and must be a clarion call to all who believe California's best days are yet ahead. Today, more students are graduating from high school in California. Today, there are more college-ready seniors applying to college. So we must make sure that together, with all of our partners, and particularly the state of California, that we have sufficient capacity to meet this demand. So we at the Cal State University are pushing forward with Graduation Initiative 2025. We are investing in our employees and student support. We are responsible and scrupulous fiduciaries of the public good and the public dollar. And while we face a $171 million gap between the trustees' budget requests and needs and the governor's proposal, as we sit here today, we are committed to not putting additional costs on students and their families to help backfill this deficit, and recently pulled tuition off the table. Indeed, we at Cal State are holding up our end of the partnership, and we need our biggest partner, the state of California, to do the same. It would be wrong-headed to continue underinvestment in its engine, social and economic ascent. Let me close my comments by offering congratulations to an applied physics program at Cal State Long Beach. Through the precise application of torque, force, and projectile acceleration, coupled with exquisite understanding of apogee, this team of students and staff innately understand and expertly applied Newton's second law of motion, which you all know is, of course, that acceleration of an object is directly proportional to the force and inversely proportional to the mass of the object. So did you get that down? That's a literary deal in the life sciences, physical sciences, not in the liberal arts stuff. Have I lost everyone yet? Well, here's a short video clip to better explain what I'm talking about.
Off the block and down.
Hold on. Okay. It was all because of Long Beach's #1 fan, Jane Connolly, that the men's volleyball team won the NC2A Division I title earlier this month by beating UCLA in dramatic, come-from-behind-twice fashion, the second such title for Long Beach, with the last being 27 years ago. Now, they're certainly winners both on the court and in the classroom. Consider these statistics. Their winning percentage this year led the nation at 96.6%, only exceeded by their academic progress rate of 99.5%. Half of the team earned academic all-star recognition with GPAs above 3.0, including 4 above 3.75 and 2 with 4.0s. And all 5 seniors on the title-winning team are graduating this month. Jane, please convey our congratulations to the champs and to the entire Long Beach State community. Chair Eisen, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chancellor, and we'll now have the report of the Academic Senate.
Thank you, Chair Eisen. I appreciate this opportunity to provide the board with an update on what happened at the Academic Senate late last week, as well as some remarks also about shared governance and leadership. I'm speaking from the podium because, as you've come to expect from me, I plan to represent my faculty colleagues in a unique way. And my theme for this report is voice. So even standing at this podium, as opposed to reporting from my seat, changes the nature of that voice in both literal and figurative ways. More on that later. First of all, you all have copies of the resolutions the Senate passed, as well as a document that summarizes them. The Senate took action on 14 resolutions, which is the most we've passed in one meeting all year, and there's no way I could discuss them all in the time I have available, so I commend those materials to you. In addition to passing resolutions, we talked a lot about ourselves as an organization and our relationship to and with others. In short, we talked about voice. If you look at our Constitution, the first thing it says is that we are the official voice of the faculty in matters of system-wide concern. We take our role quite seriously, and you know that because I've talked about shared governance, replete with dead canary references, for many months now. This month will be no different. To assert our voice, we considered 3 resolutions on shared governance last week. One expressed appreciation for the interest that the American Association of University Professors, or AAUP, has shown in shared governance in the CSU. What many people may not know is that last month, Chancellor White and I met jointly in Washington, D.C. with a representative of AAUP, where we both affirmed our commitment to robust shared governance in the CSU. That meeting was consistent with the discussions I've been telling you about all year long between 5 members of ASCSU's executive committee and the chancellor and 4 members of his leadership team. Last week, the 10 of us had our final meeting, which resulted in joint agreement on a document called Tenets of System-Level Shared Governance in the California State University. That document went to the Senate for a vote. But we have a rule for voting, just like this board does, that says a piece of business should be introduced at one meeting and voted on at the next, unless we waive our rules. The first thing we did then was debate whether to waive the rules so we could take action or take a vote on the tenants document. That vote failed, meaning we couldn't take any action. 2/3 of the senators wanted to waive our rules, but our bylaws say 3/4 of them had to agree, so we couldn't act. That outcome was disappointing to me because it meant that all the work done by the 10 leaders died on the vine, so to speak, before the fruits of our labor could be picked by the Senate. Later in the meeting, though, there was another resolution introduced. It expressed appreciation for the year-long work that had been done and urged that it continue. More specifically, it directed next year's Senate Executive Committee to bring back the tenants document in the fall. I'm pleased to note that this final resolution on shared governance was approved by every senator except one who abstained from the vote. So I've described to you what happened procedurally with those resolutions. Now I'd like to explain what I think those actions mean. In my view, those 2 resolutions have everything to do with voice. So I'd like to introduce to you, with voice, who has it, when they get it, and what they do with it. So I'm going to explore this notion of voice more creatively, and I'm going to do so literally by including a student voice in my report. This student and I are going to tag team from here on out. To explain why I think the first resolution didn't get to a vote and what that has to do with voice, I'd like to introduce you to a student being #made in the CSU and #made at Sac State. By the way, I'd like to give a shout out to Professors Pomo and Dertinger, who are allowing her to reschedule final exams so she can have this learning experience today. What she's doing here is lending her voice to the point I'm making. Singing a snippet from the musical Hamilton, this is my daughter, Karenna Miller Pullen.
I wanna be in the room where it happened, the room where it happened. I wanna be in the room where it happened, the room where it happened. I wanna be in the room where it happened. I wanna be in the room. Of the compromise. Hold your nose and close your eyes. We want our leaders to save the day. We don't get a say in what they trade away. We dream of a brand new start, but we dream in the dark for the most part. Dark as a tomb as it happens. I've got to be in the room. I've got to be. I've got to be. Click, boom.
This isn't just a floor show. I have a point. Here's my point. Using that first song, 10 people were in the room where it happened, coming up with a document expressing tenets of shared governance. Even though 5 of those people gave monthly progress reports to the Senate, the other 48 senators were not in the room. They saw the final version of that document the day before they were asked to vote on it. They hadn't engaged in monthly 2-hour meetings, debated words and phrases, and reached the compromises made by both sides. They weren't in the room where it all happened. But they appreciated the work done by those 10 people, so they praised it in a follow-up resolution. The Senate doesn't want all that work to be abandoned. Their message in the second resolution is simple. Please keep moving the project forward. Giving voice to that idea from the musical Sunday in the Park with George, here's Karenna expressing the Senate's conviction that all of the hard work on shared governance should continue from here.
Move on. Stop worrying where you're waiting. Move on. If you can know where you're going, you've gone. Just keep moving on. I chose and my world was shaken. So what? The choice may have been mistaken. The choosing was not. You have to move on. Look at all the things you gave to me. Let me give to you something in return. I would be so pleased. And the way you catch the light and the care and the feeling of life moving on. We've always belonged together. We will always belong together. Just keep on.
Those last lyrics, in my mind, are a wonderful characterization of joint decision-making, which is a hallmark of shared governance. In that enterprise, the Senate and the Chancellor's office have always belonged together, and we will always belong together. We just need to keep moving on. There's one more topic I'd like to explore with you today on this theme of voice. Excuse me. And it has to do with the candy I gave you. The chocolate is to express my sincere thanks for the support that you've given me during the last 2 years. I choose to believe all of the potentially junk science that says chocolate has medicinal value, so I'm really looking out for your health. The lollipops require a bit more explanation, however, and they're inspired by something Karenna did, so I'm going to let her voice tell you that story.
Hello. I actually have a speaking voice. I know, this is weird. So, hello everyone, my name is Karenna, as previously said multiple times. Something that made me who I am today was the privilege to be exposed to premier musical theater as I was growing up, and it truly shaped my love for theater and the arts. Anyway, I was on Facebook one day and noticed a cast announcement for a production company in Southern California and was just scrolling through the names when one of them brought back a memory that I had held on to for years. One of those actors had touched my life, so I decided to look him up on Facebook, see how it's going. I found his page and I dropped him a message. Here's what I said. Hi, Richard. I know this is incredibly out of the blue, but I saw your name on La Mirada's cast announcement and a flood of memories came back to me. In 2003, I saw you perform in Cats in Sacramento. It was my very first time seeing Cats live on stage, despite being literally raised on the 1998 VHS, and I was incredibly overwhelmed. Despite not knowing what a stage door was, my mom asked around and someone on Run Crew had us wait outside the backstage area and told you guys that there was a very excited 5-year-old that would like to meet you. Most of those faces were a blur, but yours stood out. Despite not recognizing you without the cat makeup, it's cats. They're all cats. Anyway, despite not recognizing you without the cat makeup, as soon as I knew who you played, the villain, I was instantly terrified. On top of being an overwhelmed starstruck and already shy 5-year-old, the idea that McCavity himself stood before me was the stuff of nightmares. But when I saw you and you literally kneeled down and smiled, pointing to your smile and saying, "See, I'm a nice guy, I promise, I'm not bad," I wasn't too sure, but eventually I gave in. You gave me a hug, signed my playbill, and said goodbye, walking off into the Sacramento night. I remember afterwards asking my mom if that really was McCavity. That was the first time I understood the concept of acting, that people can change and play something completely different than what they were. Years have passed, I've grown up, and started a career of my own as an actor. I haven't seen you perform for many years, but that one time you dressed up as a cat and then took a couple minutes out of your night to talk to a 5-year-old really impacted that 5-year-old, who is now no longer 5 and owes you a lot. A few days went by when suddenly my phone lit up with a notification back from Richard. He said, "Karenna, what an amazing letter. I'm so moved. If I had any part in inspiring you to be an actress, I'm so humbled. Good luck with your acting career. I hope you love it as much as I do. Again, thank you so much for your wonderful and moving letter. With your permission, may I post it? I'd really like to share and inspire those who are my colleagues, why we do what we do and the impact we can have on young ones / future artists." Of course, I said that he could absolutely post it. You know, you got to get that networking down. But he received an outpouring of support from those who were moved by me taking the time to share. Among these comments were one from his sister, talking about how he created a lollipop moment. I'd never heard of that idea before, and neither had my mother, which leads to the reason why you all have lollipops today. I'll let my mom take over from here.
Can I have that? Yep. Thank you. So just like the post suggested, we Googled lollipop moment, watched the video, and then we understood. I'd like you to understand too, so I'll share this brief TED Talk because it shows the impact that one person's voice can have on someone else.
I want to start by asking everyone in the audience here a question. How many of you are completely comfortable with calling yourselves a leader? See, I've asked that question all the way across the country, and everywhere I ask it, no matter where, there's always a huge portion of the audience that won't put up their hand. And I've come to realize that we have made leadership into something bigger than us. We made it into something beyond us. We made it about changing the world. And we've taken this title of leader and we treat it as if it's something that one day we're going to deserve. But to give it to ourselves right now means a level of arrogance or cockiness that we're not comfortable with. And I worry sometimes that we spend so much time celebrating amazing things that hardly anybody can do that we've convinced ourselves that those are the only things we're celebrating. And we start to devalue the things that we can do every day. And we start to take moments where we truly are a leader and we don't let ourselves take credit for it and we don't let ourselves feel good about it. And I've been lucky enough over the last 10 years to work with some amazing people who have helped me redefine leadership in a way that I think has made me happier. And with my short time today, I just want to share with you the one story that is probably most responsible for that redefinition. I went to a school in a little school called Mount Allison University in Sackville, New Brunswick. And on my last day there, a girl came up to me and she said, "I remember the first time that I met you." And then she told me a story that happened 4 years earlier. She said, "On my day before I started university, I was in a hotel room with my mom and my dad, and I was so scared and so convinced that I couldn't do this, that I wasn't ready for university, that I just burst into tears. And my mom and my dad were amazing. They were like, 'Look, we know you're scared, but let's just go tomorrow. Let's go to the first day, and if at any point you feel as if you can't do this, that's fine. Just tell us, we will take you home. We love you no matter what.'" And she said, so I went the next day and I was standing in line getting ready for registration, and I looked around and I just knew I couldn't do it. I knew I wasn't ready. I knew I had to quit. And she says, I made that decision, and as soon as I made it, there was this incredible feeling of peace that came over me. And I turned to my mom and my dad to tell them that we needed to go home. And just at that moment, you came out of the Student Union building wearing the stupidest hat I have ever seen in my life. It was awesome. And you had a big sign promoting Shinorama, which is Students Fighting Cystic Fibrosis, a charity I've worked with for years. And you had a bucket full of lollipops. And you were walking along and you were handing the lollipops out to people in line and talking about Shinorama. And all of a sudden, you got to me and you just stopped. And you stared. It was creepy. This girl right here knows exactly what I'm talking about. And then you looked at the guy next to me, and you smiled, and you reached in your bucket, you pulled out a lollipop, and you held it out to him. And you said, you need to give a lollipop to the beautiful woman standing next to you. And she said, I have never seen anyone get more embarrassed faster in my life. He turned beet red, and he wouldn't even look at me. He just kind of held the lollipop out like this. And I felt so bad for this dude that I took the lollipop. And as soon as I did, you got this incredibly severe look on your face, and you looked at my mom and my dad and you said, look at that, look at that. First day away from home, and already she's taking candy from a stranger. And she said everybody lost it. 20 feet in every direction, everyone started to howl. And I know this is cheesy, and I don't know why I'm telling you this, but in that moment when everyone was laughing, I knew that I shouldn't quit. I knew that I was where I was supposed to be, and I knew that I was home. And I haven't spoken to you once in the 4 years since that day, but I heard that you were leaving. And I had to come up and tell you that you've been an incredibly important person in my life, and I'm gonna miss you. Good luck. And she walks away, and I'm flattened. And she gets about 6 feet away, she turns around and smiles and goes, you should probably know this too. I'm still dating that guy 4 years later. A year and a half after I moved to Toronto, I got an invitation to their wedding. Here's the kicker, I don't remember that. I have no recollection of that moment, and I've searched my memory banks because that is funny, and I should remember doing it, and I don't remember it. And that was such an eye-opening, transformative moment for me to think that maybe the biggest impact I'd ever had on anyone's life, a moment that had a woman walk up to a stranger 4 years later and say, you've been an incredibly important person in my life, was a moment that I didn't even remember. How many of you guys have a lollipop moment, a moment where someone said something or did something that you feel fundamentally made your life better? All right. How many of you have told that person they did it? See, why not? We celebrate birthdays where all you have to do is not die for 365 days. And yet we let people who have made our lives better walk around without knowing it. And every single one of you has been the catalyst for a lollipop moment. You have made someone's life better by something that you said or that you did. And if you think you haven't, think about all the hands that didn't go back up when I asked that question. You're just one of the people who hasn't been told. But it is so scary to think of ourselves as that powerful. It can be frightening to think that we can matter that much to other people. Because as long as we make leadership something bigger than us, as long as we keep leadership something beyond us, as long as we make it about changing the world, we give ourselves an excuse not to expect it every day from ourselves and from each other. Marianne Williamson said, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light and not our darkness that frightens us. And my call to action today is that we need to get over that. We need to get over our fear of how extraordinarily powerful we can be in each other's lives. We need to get over it so we can move beyond it. And our little brothers and our little sisters, and one day our kids, or our kids right now, can watch us start to value the impact we can have on each other's lives more than money and power and titles and influence. We need to redefine leadership as being about lollipop moments. How many of them we create, how many of them we acknowledge, how many of them we pay forward, and how many of them we say thank you for. Because we've made leadership about changing the world, and there is no world. There's only 6 billion understandings of it. And if you change one person's understanding of it, one person's understanding of what they're capable of, one person's understanding of how much people care about them, one person's understanding of how powerful an agent for change they can be in this world, you've changed the whole thing. And if we can understand leadership like that, I think if we can redefine leadership like that, I think we can change everything. And it's a simple idea, but I don't think it's a small one. And I want to thank you all so much for letting me share it with you today.
So, members of the board, Chancellor White, Executive Vice Chancellor Blanchard, campus presidents, Alumni President Morales, CSSA President White, I must tell you, you all have been incredibly important people in my life. My life has been transformed by this room and those in it in ways big and small. Each one of you creates lollipop moments all the time, and you transform lives. So please enjoy that lollipop or pass it on to someone who's been extraordinarily powerful in your life, but who may not know it. Let's be our best selves and continue changing the world and the CSU. The last thing I'd like to say to you is goodbye, since this is my last board report. Dr. Catherine Nelson from Sonoma State begins her term as Senate Chair on June 1st. Joining her on the leadership team are Robert Keith Collins from San Francisco State, as well as Vice Chair, Simone Aloisio from Channel Islands as Secretary, and 2 members at large are Praveen Soni from Long Beach and Jody Ullman from San Bernardino. And I'll continue on the Executive Committee as immediate past chair. It's been my distinct honor, pleasure, and privilege to serve the faculty and students of the California State University. I can think of no better way to express it than ending with this.
Kiss today goodbye. Point me toward tomorrow.
All right, now you see what I meant by the A game. Thank you so much, Chris, for everything you've done for the CSU and for our meetings. That was exciting. So now we have, I don't even know what to expect next. The report of the CSSA, Maggie White, President.
Well, thank you, Chair Eisen, and good morning, everyone. You know, I thought it was hard enough to follow Chair Miller every time I have to do a report, and then she brings another Miller that I have to follow. So that is just tough. But as always, I am so thankful for this opportunity to present a report on behalf of CSSA at my 17th and final meeting of the Board of Trustees as an elected student leader. Times of transition can be tough for those who love what they do, but they also offer the opportunity to recommit to values while opening up new perspectives. I'm excited to announce that CSSA's executive officer elections took place last weekend, and this organization will be led by a fierce team of student advocates. Mia K. Giannis as president. She currently serves as ASI president at Sacramento State. Joe Nino as chair, currently serves at Cal State Long Beach as ASI president. Carolyn Tinoco from Dominguez Hills as the vice president of finance. Wilson Hall as the vice president of university affairs. He's currently at Sonoma State as their ASI president. And Latrell Powell from San Diego State as the vice president of legislative affairs. We're very excited about this team, and we know they'll represent students excellently in the year to come. Now, I've given a lot of speeches, but there's one that I am particularly nervous about, and it's happening next week. I'll be speaking at my commencement ceremony in front of other graduate students and their families as I earn my second CSU degree. So I've been doing some research, like any good graduate, on graduation speeches, and people seem to love to talk about the real world. Get ready for the real world, kids, because the last 4 years have been the easy part. That's a recurring theme that I'm seeing all over the internet. Well, for some college students, that may be appropriate. But for CSU students in particular, I'm not sure if this is an entirely relevant message. I've told a story before, and I'll just briefly mention it now, that when I became the president of CSSA, I was invited to a national summit of student body presidents in Washington, D.C. And I've always walked with a lot of pride knowing I represent 500,000 of the best students in the country. When I walked into this presidential summit, I felt myself deflate and feel just a little bit small as I looked around the room and saw Ivy League schools. And I heard them talking about their problems. And I thought, how can I even raise my voice in this room? They were talking about the problems of their students having too many extracurriculars, balancing sororities, 4.5 GPAs. And I thought, these are not my people. And I don't ever want to minimize anyone else's problems. But after feeling just a little bit deflated for just a moment, I thought, somebody's got to talk about my people. And I'm very glad that although they live in that world, this is my world, and I'm glad to be in it. So I think that our students are already living in the real world. That's why I'm so proud to represent them. They're single parents and returning students, former foster youth, and undocumented scholars from small towns and from some of the largest cities in the country. They're taking a risk by doing something that no one in their family has ever done before, what their high school guidance counselor said they probably wouldn't be able to do. They're tough and they have grit. They know what it takes to work their way up from the bottom. Nothing has ever been handed to them, and so they know the value of hard work and figuring it out for yourself. If that isn't the real world, I'm not sure what is. So I won't be talking about that next week, because CSU students have been living in the real world for a long time already. But I will be talking about how incredible they are for fulfilling their potential. How everyone has brilliance inside of them, but not everyone has the privilege yet to recognize that brilliance and invest so heavily in themselves as to earn a college degree. To persevere through the natural obstacles of an academic institution while juggling the never-ending responsibilities of real-world living. I'll be thanking each of them for the contributions I know they'll make to our community as our soon-to-be teachers and nurses, business leaders, and public administrators. I'll remind them that the state of California owes them a debt of gratitude for their hard work to reach this point, because as much as they will personally benefit from a college degree, the state will benefit even more. And I hope that message resonates all the way from our little town to the halls of the Capitol, because it seems that some do not yet recognize the value of a good investment. I want to take this moment to recognize the incredible work of this board, the campus leadership in the room, the system-wide leadership, our students, our faculty, and our staff, who have been making this very case to our state leaders for this entire year, that they have a responsibility to support these future teachers, nurses, leaders of all sectors by fully funding this board's funding request. I can't count the amount of times I personally have walked the halls in Sacramento, meeting with legislators, speaking to committees, and telling them this very thing. But I do know that it's apparently been a lot, because at this point, the first thing I hear from folks in the Capitol is, "Oh, you again? We keep hearing from all of you at the CSU." And so as we celebrate and toss our graduation caps and talk about things ending, students know that this budget fight in Sacramento is not yet over. In fact, it will not end next month. We still have a few weeks to go to complete this year's budget advocacy, and we all will work and fight hard for what should be a common sense request in the Capitol. However, we cannot continue to do this over and over and over again. The energy that we have to spend each year to convince our legislators and state leaders to value higher education could be spent doing so much more to innovate and improve this system that we all care deeply for. And so I'm hoping that after the dust settles on this year's campaign, we can all come together, higher education stakeholders, legislators, and hopefully the future governor, to come up with a real, long-term, multi-year funding model that takes us out of this cycle. We've been saying it. I've heard board members talk about it. I've heard presidents and legislators say it. Now we need to roll up our sleeves and actually do it. Regardless of the outcome of the budget negotiations, I don't want it to go unsaid that CSU student voices need to be front and center in discussions and processes that impact the student experience. I would like to encourage the institutional leaders in this room to be intentional about including students. Don't leave student engagement up to serendipity. Involve students purposely and often, because ultimately our perspectives and contributions are essential to ensuring that our campuses are meeting the needs of the 21st century student. Now I want to take a moment to simply say thank you. This year has been tough in many ways. Natural disasters and man-made violence, assaults from the federal level on values that Californians and CSU stakeholders hold dear. And yet here we are, pushing on, more dedicated to our mission and values than ever before, ready to do the hard work that matters. I want to give a special thank you to a few people in the room who have been instrumental in my personal growth during my time, first as a student trustee and now as president of the System-Wide Student Association. Thank you, Dr. Chris Miller, for your commitment to students and always being a good partner in your role as chair of the Academic Senate. You have given many people many lollipop moments. Thank you, Trustee Hinton and Trustee Reyes Salinas, for your tireless work on behalf of students all over the state, no matter the circumstances. Thank you, Chancellor White and Chair Eisen, for your leadership in these tough times as the system has navigated increased demands and decreased resources, a challenging political landscape, and just in general being the largest four-year university system in the country. I'm thankful to everyone in this room for the very important work that you do. And now I would like to move on to formally recognizing some exceptional people in this room on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Cal State Student Association. I'd like to ask that our honorees come to the podium when you hear your name so that we can take a picture and you can be recognized for your service. For Trustee of the Year, CSSA would like to recognize Trustee Peter Taylor. For your relentless pursuit of solutions that better position the CSU to best serve CSU students. Your laser focus on equity has been an invaluable asset to this board. We are thankful for your service, and I personally appreciate you as my friend. Thank you, Peter. Now, Dr. Miller, I love the candy, but I wish you'd brought little packs of Kleenex, because that would have really helped me out right now. While we're recognizing trustees, CSSA would like to recognize Trustee George Reyes Salinas and thank him for doing hard work and hard times, being my friend and travel partner for the past 2 years, and being a tireless advocate for students and marginalized communities. Thank you, George. For Administrator of the Year, CSSA would like to recognize Dr. Denise Bevely. Students appreciate the work that you are doing to support system-wide solutions to basic needs challenges like food and housing insecurity. This work means so much to our students. We are very thankful for your dedication to this cause and this system. Thank you, Dr. Bevely. Now, it's very fitting that following Dr. Bevely, CSSA would like to recognize Dr. Rashida Crutchfield as Faculty of the Year for her critical and cutting-edge research that has revealed the very real challenges that CSU students are facing around food and housing insecurity. Thank you for equipping students with the data to advocate for themselves and equipping stakeholders with the information they need to make important policy changes to support students facing these challenges. Thank you, Dr. Crutchfield. And now lastly, for President of the Year, CSSA would like to recognize Dr. Joseph Castro, President of Fresno State University, for his bold leadership. I'm actually going to turn it over to some Fresno State students who drove all the way here to be here today to talk about what his bold leadership has meant to them.
Thank you, Board of Trustees, Chancellor White. My name is Brandon Sepulveda, and I'm very happy to be here to recognize Dr. Castro on behalf of the students of Fresno State. As a student and native of the Central Valley, I'm proud to call Dr. Castro my president. In my past 4 years as student at Fresno State, I have seen the university grow and prosper under the leadership of Dr. Castro. I can speak extensively on the many projects and initiatives ranging from food security, where Fresno State has opened the student cupboard that provides free food for our students in need, to his support of our students and their 1 million hours of community service completed this year, as well as his commitment to improving facilities at Fresno State, including new infrastructure, electrical upgrades, and updated classrooms that ensure our students learn in the best environment possible. But most importantly, I would like to speak on Dr. Castro's unwavering commitment to putting students first. I've had the honor and privilege of working alongside Dr. Castro and can say without a doubt that he is a champion for our students. One of my fondest memories is seeing Dr. Castro eat at our campus Taco Bell and interact with our students. He did not wait for students to come to him. He made the effort and went to them. And I remember clearly thinking to myself, this is a man who cares for his students. More recently, I have seen the tremendous burden and weight of being president during difficult times, but I have spoken with many of our students, and they have expressed the utmost pride, support, admiration, and empathy for our president. Fresno State, our students, and our community are extremely lucky to have Dr. Castro as our president. So on behalf of the student body at Fresno State, thank you, Dr. Castro, for your service, and to our students, and thank you for being bold.
Let's do an all one, and then we'll do. Yeah, that's good. That'll work. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Perfect. You do one more.
In closing, I'm very thankful for the opportunities this system has provided for student involvement and shared governance. And I'm especially thankful for what a difference this system has made in my life, as someone who almost didn't go to college and will now be graduating with a master's degree next week. Over the past 3 years, I've spent more than 250 days on the road, meeting with students, faculty, staff, administrators, and legislators to talk just about the CSU. When I first transferred to Stan State from community college 4 years ago, I didn't know the difference between the CSU and the UC. I thought one just had a longer acronym, but they were the same thing. Or that we were a system of 23 campuses, or what the heck a trustee or a president even did. I thought only scientists in white lab coats got advanced degrees and did research. This system and the educational opportunities that I've been given have exceeded my wildest dreams, changed my life, and changed the trajectory of my family. I will be forever thankful for the education that I've received, both inside and outside of the classroom. And I think that's exactly what I'll say at graduation. Thank you.
All right, we need to catch our breath between each of these speeches. I, for one, do not want to kiss today goodbye. I'm liking this day. Thank you, Maggie. We will now have the report of the CSU Alumni Council, Manolo Morales.
Thank you so much, Chair Eisen, and thank you for your leadership over these past 2 years. We look forward to working with you as you continue your service on board. Fortunately for everybody, I won't be singing. Unfortunately, I don't have any candy either, so we're going to have to make that just the deal we have. The first thing I'd like to do is draw your attention to the Made in CSU booklet that you have on your chairs. This is the 2018 edition showcasing alumni from key industries who are leading California and really all over the world. Also in the lobby, we have poster-size versions of this, and also a website which features hundreds of alumni that's sorted by campus and by industry. Now, the Alumni Council, as you've heard me talk about for the past year, has been working on how we can really assimilate ourselves with the graduation initiative, particularly in 2 key areas: career prep and supporting students' basic needs. To that end, I wanted to give a brief progress report on where we've been over the last 2 years as we've really been looking at this. There has been initial progress on every campus, as you know, and the opportunities for alumni to be engaged are ever increasing. So one of the first things I wanted to talk about was we're working to better align the alumni offices with the career centers. As we know that sometimes in different campuses, they're in different divisions, and that kind of collaboration can be difficult to achieve. So to that end, the directors of the alumni relations and the director of the career centers held their first ever system-wide joint meeting to focus on opportunities where they can collaborate, specifically on mentoring programs, increasing availability of internships, sharing internal data, which we know is really important in a campus, really all with the aim of better managing our long-term relationships with our alumni. I think we need everybody to be part of this, and it's been really great to see those two divisions work together. And as an example of that, San Diego State recently shared the successes they've had with their Aztecs Hiring Aztecs program and the Aztec Mentors program, which provide great opportunities for students and also allow alumni to directly connect with these students. Regarding basic needs, the Alumni Council was educated on these issues by Dr. Denise Bevely, student speakers, and campus leaders. Fresno State shared their success that they've had engaging the community in fundraising to support their student cupboard. CSU Chico should be commended with their Wildcat food pantry. And these are just some of the examples of great opportunities for partnering our alumni with the campus to ensure these important basic needs programs are funded. Switching gears real quick, I'd like to also share my thanks to Kathleen Chavira and her shop in Advocacy and State Relations for their tireless work on this year's budget. Along with my executive team, I've been able to join on legislative visits, roundtable discussions, stakeholder meetings, the rally at the Capitol, and other advocacy events in support of the university. The Alumni Council is extremely proud to be a part of this final push for the budget. And last Friday, we were proud to submit 117 letters to Governor Brown asking for the full funding for this board's request. These letters are personal letters from alumni, business leaders, and people that really, some of them have no connection to the university except it's in their town and they know what the value that it provides to them. So we are very committed to ensuring today's students have the access that we all had when we were there. So now I'm very pleased to introduce our alumni guest speakers. 2 months ago, I gave you a brother and sister team. This is our other special cohort, our alumni spouses. So Emilio is a 1983 graduate of Cal State LA and is the owner and business strategist at his own consulting firm. He also serves on the Cal State LA Alumni Association Board of Directors. Angelica is a 1984 graduate of Cal State LA and is an insurance agent with State Farm. So please help me welcoming Emilio and Angelica, and please share your CSU story.
Chancellor White and the Board of Trustees, it's truly an honor to be here to share our experience. How did Cal State LA make a positive impact on me? Number one, I met my wife there. And number two, provided me the opportunity to become a CPA and to complete my MBA work at Pepperdine and to provide a comfortable living for my family. And coming from a low-income, hardworking family, Cal State LA was affordable and local. And for me, there weren't many other options at that point. Life is not a linear path. Passion, persistence, self-confidence, sharing and giving back are skills I developed at Cal State LA. Thanks to Cal State LA and the Educational Opportunity Program for giving me a chance to attend after not focusing well in high school. Thanks to Vera Sprague at the Career Center. Coincidentally, you bring that up because she helped me to focus and get my first couple jobs after graduating. I was very fortunate to complete my degree in 4 years because I said, I'm going to do this. Those words I shared were something that were important to me at that point in my life. So I focused on 4 years year-round and went through to get my degree. I'm currently on the Cal State LA Alumni Board, and I am very proud to give back to the university and to share with others and provide insight to young people when I'm asked to. Let's see. My other passions are, I've been a runner most of my adult life, so I'm the old guy that you talked about earlier. And after my kids grew up, I took up triathlon a couple years ago. And I completed my first half Ironman a couple months ago. And that was a tremendous accomplishment for me personally. And in 3 weeks, my wife is going to join me to go to Kona, to go to the Holy Grail of triathlon, where I'm going to do a half Ironman. I'm preparing and cautiously optimistic that I will do well in the heat and humidity. But that goes back to say thank you to Cal State LA for helping me to get the tools I needed to succeed in life through education. I believe in helping others, and I'm very lucky to have my life partner, Angelica, here with me.
I'm going to give the ladies' perspective of what happened at Cal State LA. I graduated from a very small Catholic all-girls high school in the city of LA. It's called Sacred Heart of Jesus. And when I went to Cal State LA, it was a very scary event for me because of the volume of people, and then there were men. I was not used to that. So, at the beginning, it was very uncomfortable in the classroom to make that transition. But as time went on, you kind of get used to it, your environment and the size of the school, it seems so huge. I went in undecided. I didn't know what I was going to do. The one thing that I did know is that I was going to find a husband, because that was my goal, to go to Cal State LA. So somehow I ended up in the business school. I can't remember how. And there was a fire drill, because they do fire drills at the schools, right? And there was this guy named Emilio Campos that was standing next to me, and I just started talking to him, and I gave him my number, and I thought, God, I wonder if he'll call me. So I went on to the business school, and somebody here, one of the speakers, talked about remedial math. Well, I was one of those students. And I took that class, my God, in 1981 or something like that. And if it wasn't for that remedial class that I took, I would not have the base that I needed in order to go on to, my God, had I known this was in the business school, I would have never done it. Statistics and economics and all these other math classes, that's horrible, but somehow I survived. Oh, and a finance class, oh my God, that was horrible. So about in my third year at Cal State LA, I told my boyfriend, I think I'm going to quit. You go ahead and graduate, and I'll just, follow you around or something. I don't know. And he said, what? Are you serious? I'm not going to marry you unless you graduate. I'm like, oh, my God. So here you go. That was my lollipop moment. Thank you very much for helping me during that rough spot. After graduating from Cal State LA, that career center you're talking about, well, it worked really well for me. There was a lady named Vera Sprague. You guys should know that name because I'm sure she's passed on by now. I didn't keep in touch with her. Maybe after 10 years of graduating, we would meet with her and thank her for everything she did for all the students at Cal State LA. She was a wonderful woman. I interviewed for State Farm on the campus. I was hired, and here I am 32 years later. I couldn't believe that, what is State Farm insurance? That's like an evil, ugly paper that you pay a lot of money for with a little promise on it, right? But I made that my career. It took me a while to decide to go small business because that's a scary thing. In the city of LA, there are so many rules and regulations and workers' comp and the labor board, and oh my God. But I just have a little degree from Cal State LA. I don't have a master's like him. I don't have a degree like a lot of my girlfriends went to USC or a UC campus. I was the only one that went to a Cal State campus. I don't even remember why, but that's the way it worked out. And that little Cal State LA business degree is the one that helped me to build my small business in the city of LA. So I'm very grateful to Cal State LA. So I'm such an exciting person that we still live about 5 blocks from Cal State LA, okay? So every day in the morning on my way to work and in the evening and on my way home, I pass by Cal State LA. And Dr. Corvino has done an unbelievable job at that school. I cannot believe the changes that have occurred in the past 2 years. Every day I just get more and more proud of being a Cal State LA graduate, really. The tuition. I want to talk a little bit about tuition so you guys have a little historical perspective. I don't know, how long do I have? I could talk a lot. Okay, so when I started at Cal State LA, my dad paid my tuition. And at Sacred Heart, it was $50 a month. At Cal State LA, it was $50 a quarter, back when it was quarter system, because it's no longer that. And my dad would say, why do people complain, about sending their kids to college if it's cheaper than high school? I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even pay attention to the pricing back then. You just said, Dad, that's the price. And now I know that the pricing has certainly gone up. And I'm hoping that Sacramento's going to help our schools, because I did read an article this morning in the paper about how we're asking for help. They need that. They truly do. These are great schools where many of my friends have gone to school there, and I'm hoping that I know a future governor's in here, and that they're going to help us out in Sacramento. Anyways, nobody planted me here, by the way. This is me. I think that's it. Thank you very much for today. It was very inspiring.
Thank you to Emilio and Angelica for spending the morning with us. I think they do have maybe a misimpression that these board meetings are typically like this, with singing and dancing and awards, but we'll have them back next May. Chair Eisen, that concludes my report.
Thank you, President Morales. I know you have a wealth of riches when you choose from our distinguished alums, but you always choose so well. Thank you so much for your stories today. I don't know if we can promise every CSU student will meet their life partner. If we are going to make that promise, I think we'll have to ask for more money from the state and fund that. We don't want any more unfunded mandates. All right, it's now time for the board to consider the items listed on today's consent agenda. All of the committee items requiring full board approval are listed on the consent agenda. They include the election of a new board chair and vice chair for the Board of Trustees for next year, as well as approval of the Board of Trustees standing committee assignments for next year. Does any trustee wish to remove any item for separate discussion? All right. Jack?
I just want to make a comment on item number 7, San Diego State University Master Plan, when it's appropriate.
Mm-hmm. A comment on a consent item. Do we do that?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Secretary Jones, please rule on this one.
Are you going to make a comment on it, or just talk about your voting status?
I'm going to talk about my voting status.
Okay, then you just said you want to abstain from voting on the consent agenda. Otherwise, you have to pull the item and then separately abstain.
I'll be abstaining on that item.
All right, thank you very much. I understand. You're going to be abstaining from number 7 on the consent agenda. Any other trustees indicate that they want to abstain from any of the items on the consent agenda? Otherwise, may I have a motion to approve all of the items listed on the consent agenda? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? One abstention noted for the one item, number 7. The items listed on the consent agenda are approved. I have been asked to turn the mic over to our new chair, Adam Day, and it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. This is not mine yet. According to our rules of procedure, you're the chair until you adjourn the meeting. Very briefly, on behalf of my colleagues, I would like to present to you this token of our appreciation and an incredible chairmanship that you've had, an incredible leader. I can't predict the future, but I will tell you with certainty that I will not be able to provide reports as eloquent and as humorous as yours. I would be remiss if I did not thank my colleagues for your vote of confidence, and I take it as a vote of confidence, and I will do my utmost to represent you well at all times. But Becky, you've been a phenomenal leader, chairwoman, and friend, and on behalf of the entire board, thank you for your service.
Thank you so much. Wow, this is one of those incredible days I'll never forget. This does conclude the business of the May Board of Trustees meeting. The board will reconvene for our next regularly scheduled meeting on July 24th, 25th, 2018. Notice of the meeting will go out in the ordinary due course 10 days in advance of that meeting. We are adjourned.
This is the California